The message. I've been lying in my room for hours now. It's 5:30 a.m., and there's not much I can do. You know what the worst part of my situation is? I'm in the same room with my parents. They keep looking at me, and I can't help but not look back and try not to cry or scream. Their eyes are focused on me, and their mouths are wide open. There's a strong scent of blood, and I feel so paralyzed with fear. Here's the thing. The second I make any hint that I'm not asleep anymore, I'm screwed. I'll die, and there's nobody around to save me. I've been trying to think of a way out, but the only idea I have is to rush for the door, run outside, and scream for help, hoping any neighbors hear me. It's risky, but if I stay here, I'll surely die. He's waiting for me to wake up and see his masterpiece. You're probably wondering what's going on. I do get ahead of myself sometimes. About 3 hours ago, I heard screaming from the other side of the house. I got up and went to check the noise before I realized I had to use the restroom. Instead of doing the smart, noble thing and investigating, I used the bathroom first. I could have gotten myself killed right then for my stupid actions. But I actually did my business and took a peek outside the bathroom. There was blood on the carpet. As any other sane human would do, I bolted back to my room, hiding under my sheets like the scaredy I was. I tried to convince myself to go back to sleep, and that this was just some weird, vivid dream or something. But I heard my bedroom door creak open, and like the terrified child I was, I peeked out from under my blankets to see what was going on. I could see something dragging my parents into the room, obviously dead. It was not human, I can tell you that much. It was hairless with no eyes and no clothing. It walked like a caveman, with its back slouched as it dragged my dead parents. But this thing was smarter than any caveman. It propped my father against the edge of the bed and made him face me. It then set my mother down in the chair and positioned her towards me as well. Then it started rubbing its hands along the walls, staining it with blood, drawing a circle with the devil's pentagram in it. This thing had made what it probably would call a masterpiece. To finish it off, scrambled a message onto the wall that I could not read in the darkness. It then positioned itself under my bed, waiting to strike. The scariest thing now is, my eyes have adjusted to the darkness, and since then, I can read the message on the wall. I don't want to look at it, because it's terrifying to think about, but I feel I need to see it before I'm killed. I peek at the creature's masterpiece. I know you're awake. Hide and seek. There was once a family of 5, 3 children and 2 parents, who loved their kids with all their hearts. This family lived in a nice home in a quaint little town called Bakerston. Their lives were simple and pleasant, and Bakerston was an unusually peaceful town that had little to no crime. One of their children, the eldest daughter, was named Felicity, and she was very good at watching her little brothers, Raymond and Rory. So, occasionally, their parents would go out for the night and leave Felicity with her brothers until they got back. Felicity was very good at this. She would always play games similar to hide and seek. She'd stand in the living room with her hands over her eyes and say, "Children, children, all around, run before you can be found, for I am on the loose today. Hide before I can say." Then she'd wait, listening to their rustling feet as they would hide. She'd search the house looking for them, and when she got close, she'd wait right outside the place she knew that they were hiding, and she'd say, "Boo!" When they heard this sound, they would know that she was close, so if she was correct, they would have to reply in the words, "Hello, Felicity," and she'd scoop them up and hug them. If the other child was close enough that they heard these words, they were allowed additional time to find a new spot, and then Felicity and the found child looked for them together. The children absolutely loved this game, and they insisted that she play it with them every time they were together. One night, recently after their parents left, Felicity and the boys were relaxing in their home. The boys were in their rooms off of the living room, and Felicity was in the living room reading. Suddenly, there was a loud knock on the door. Felicity, thinking it might be her parents, and that they would be upset that the boys weren't asleep, she rushed to the intercom system that allowed anyone in the living room to speak to all the rooms in the house. The boys had one in their room, too. This made it so that no one had to yell from room to room in the house. She pressed the button and quietly said, "Open your door and get underneath your covers. I think it's Mom and Dad. Pretend to be asleep." Then she went to answer the door. The boys did as they were told and got beneath their covers. They heard the door open, but no other sounds. It was quiet. Then the intercom beeped, which meant someone was on the other side. A voice said, "Children, children," all around. The little boy shivered. It was Felicity, and she sounded scared. She sounded at a whisper, and they became frightened. They stayed in their beds, still scared. Then, run before you can be found. They glanced at each other in horror. For he is on the loose today. Hide before I can say. "She wants to play the game," Rory whispered to Raymond. They waited a few seconds. Then it came on again. "Children, children all around." Silence. "Run before you can be found." Silence. "For it is on the loose today. Hide before I can say." The boys quickly decided that they needed to hide. They crawled to their favorite place, which was the broom closet in the hallway that Felicity claimed was too small to fit in. But the boys knew it wasn't. She never found them there. She always called quits if either of them chose that spot. They quieted their breathing and listened for sounds. They heard soft shuffling of feet, but that was all. They stayed in the closet a long time. Suddenly, though, another sound filled their ears. Thud. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Thud. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Thud. 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 The sound got closer and closer and closer and closer. They heard Felicity's voice whisper, but it seemed to come from throughout the house. "Children, children all around. Run before you can be found. For I am on the loose today. Hide before I can say." Silence. Then the softest whisper of all, right outside the closet, they heard. "Boo." Rory opened his mouth to say hello, Felicity, but Raymond closed his hand over Rory's mouth. It was silence for long enough. Then, from Raymond and Rory's right, inside the closet, a voice was heard. "Hello, Felicity." Rory and Raymond turned ice cold, but they didn't move. Outside the closet, Felicity started to cry. Then in tears she said, "New game. Rory is it." That same night, the parents of Rory, Raymond, and Felicity came home to a devastating sight. On the table was a letter that... "Screw you, James!" No. Okay. Again. 3, 2, 1, cut. Rory and Raymond turned ice cold, but they didn't move. Outside the closet, Felicity started to cry. Then in tears, she said, "New game. Rory is it." That same night, the parents of Rory, Raymond, and Felicity came home to a devastating sight. On the table was a letter that had apparently been opened by Felicity that said, "I want to play your game. I'm in the children's room. We'll all play together." They proceeded to look throughout the house for their children. They couldn't find them that night. The next night, they found Rory. His eyes were sewn shut, and he was jammed underneath the kitchen sink, covered in blood. The day after that, they found Raymond. His eyes were sewn shut, and he was shoved underneath his bed, covered in blood. The day after that, they found Felicity. Her eyes were sewn shut. She was squished inside a cupboard. The deaths were mourned, and their bodies were buried. A week later, another body was discovered. A missing mortician was found crammed inside the hallway closet with his sewing kit clutched between his cold, dead fingers. The thud, thud, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle the children had heard had found the sound of Felicity bumping into walls. She had been looking for them. She couldn't see. because her eyes had been sewn shut. Years later, it was said that the soft calling of Felicity's voice could be heard calling the words of the children's hide-and-seek rhyme. Children, children all around, run before you can be found, for I am on the loose today. Run before I can say, boo. Hey, my name is Vinny. I'm 15 years old, and I live in Erie, Pennsylvania. Nothing scary really ever happens to me, except for a few nights ago. I haven't slept well since the incident. This is the only way I feel I can relieve some of the fear, to tell you my story. Well, anyway, like I said, it was a few nights ago, July 11th, 2005. I was dead tired, because I had just got done seeing my girlfriend all day, so I decided to hit the sack a little earlier than normal. Everything was routine for me. As usual, I brushed my teeth, and washed up and went to my room. Shut off my lights, closed my door, and got into bed. I was only asleep for about 2.5 hours. When I woke up out of dead sleep, my room looked hazy, but I figured it was just because I was waking up like I normally don't do. So I rubbed my eyes and sat down. I looked around, and in the far corner of the room, I saw something that sent a chill up my spine. I couldn't move, didn't know what to think. There in the corner was an old woman, battered and beaten, staring right back at me. I couldn't run for my door, because she was standing in the corner by it. I tried to scream, but I completely froze. I was half paralyzed, but I could still move my eyes, so I looked down and shut them. Suddenly, I could move again. So I hid under my covers and curled up in a ball and closed my eyes tight. I thought she was gone, so I peeked out from my covers. And she was right beside my bed, bent over, looking me in the face. Her face was scarred and bloody. I quickly pulled the covers back over my head and started praying. Soon after I started to pray, I became relaxed and went to sleep, totally hidden from everything under my covers. Still, I woke up, and to my surprise, it was nighttime once again. I had slept the day away. At this point, it was about 11 p.m., and I wasn't tired at all. So I lay there, thinking to myself, was it a dream? I closed my eyes trying to remember what had really happened, but I couldn't quite remember. And when I opened them, I saw the old woman had returned. Then my lights went on and off, slowly. The first time they went off and came back on, I saw she started to walk towards me. The second time it happened, she was right next to my bed, with a knife held over her head, with an evil-looking smile on her face. I got up and tried to run through her, and I did. I turned around once I got to my door, and she was stabbing right where I was laying. I opened my door and sprinted downstairs to my parents, but they said I was dreaming and told me to go back to bed. Of course I didn't go back up there. I ended up sleeping on the couch. When I woke up, it was morning. To my relief, right away I went to my room with my buck knife in my hand and searched for clues of a woman being in my room and stab marks in my bed. But I found nothing, so I decided to do some research. It turned out that before I moved into my house, an old couple lived there. My room was the couple's former room. The man, Charles, was an ex-convict who abused his wife constantly, and one day, his wife, Rosemary, had enough of his abuse, and in the middle of the night, she snuck into their room and murdered him in cold blood. I guess that explains everything. Yes, this is a true story.